in the blue, Mr. in the red, but everyone in the black, as we are going to have berry madness here on Lipany. The map to pick it on, the most optimal one so frequently, it's an Abbasid mirror.
It's also the third mirror of the set out of the 5 games that we have over here. If you think about that, we have already had a Mongols mirror, we have just finished an HRA mirror, and now we have an Abbasid mirror out there, in which Vam, he's gonna be very successful finding sheep, just like he was in the Mongols mirror in game number 2. Would you look at that?
I'm gonna have to ask Wham if he, like, does he have a sheep voice? Does he, like, is he very good at baiting them? Have you ever done that? Like, I've been to a farm when I was younger, and I may have, like, talked with the goats a lot. They like me.
Yeah, so you're telling me that if you say into your microphone, you can find the sheep on the map?
I'm actually, like, I'm glad you now highlight that, because now that when I hear it out loud, it really doesn't sound like a sheep when a random guy on the internet says it to you on the microphone.
Okay, my sheep impersonation is not that good. I mean, there is a reason why I'm a paid caster, not a sheep enthusiast.
It's important to not be too enthusiastic about sheep, I find. But when you're a Mongol, you have no choice.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you. You gotta keep a safe distance from the sheep. Let's just say that. Or at least draw the lines at a specific point.
Exactly, I'm an Englishman. I can just say it's all about the doner kebabs, so that's absolutely fine. But you know what? Let's see who's gonna have the most doner kebabs, because I think it can be an important detail in here. We already mentioned outpost rushing as a possibility, but also camel archers on exposed berry lines. Like, there's a lot of reason to want those sheep, even in an Abbasid mirror matchup. And Wham's gonna have a lot more. Notice a key detail here that is different: 1 scout, 2 scouts. No wonder Wham is such a beckoner of sheeps.
And many of you might have been saying, hey, it's the Abbasids, they'll be playing with berries, so why is sheep important? It's because both players are playing with Abbasids, so both of them will be targeting the berries. Those are very much finite, and those will be focused down by the opponent. So having the backup option under your town center and having a lot more of that compared to your opponent is a massive advantage over here.
And looking wider on the spawns here, this is another one of those very open type maps. This is where the aggressive feudal age build does become quite desirable. Usually when you see these large cliffs and these block off points. Yes, thank you, Core. This is definitely Lipany. Look at all that, like, wow, 3 tiny cliffs. I really feel like it's going to intrude upon people's ability to play the map.
I mean, size matters, right? We can say that. Those are definitely some small cliffs.
Yeah, they're quite baby level. I think the stealth forest is going to be more an impediment than anything else there. In fact, Wham, I think he's coming back across the scouts now, so you might just try and poke and prod at the gold line if that's a possibility. Even if it's not, the cool thing that Wham now has is full range advantage, like in terms of vision. He can see everywhere in his opponent's base.
And it's gonna be interesting because this is a civilization matchup where multi-town center play is pretty common. We have seen instances of Abbasid mirrors going up to like 11 town centers combined, 5 and 6 apiece. So you need to have thorough scouting, you need to know what your opponent is up to. If you're going 2 TCs, is he going 3, is he going 4, or is he going to play 1 town center very aggressive? So that scouting element is gonna be key, and Wham is gonna have a little bit more vision using 2 scouts.
What I'm also excited for is, when you get into Abbasid mirrors, Lidakor, historically, what is the thing you've noticed by 40 minutes in that is still not taken on the map?
Relics.
There you go. But guess what? These 2 players, I've actually watched them get relics quite quick, and I'm excited for that. Abbasid players, you cry about your camels being too weak. You cry about how you get rushed when you try to TC boom. Have you ever considered taking the relics that literally every other civ in the game yoink straight away at the beginning of Castle Age? Have you?
And you kind of gotta do that because it's a mirror matchup. Every single difference matters between the 2 players out there, just like the harassment of these scouts, which is turning out to be relatively impactful.
I also just love how, like, you can tell how bad it is for Abbasid players when you instantly went to relics, even though the boars are still an option to say because Abbasids can't eat boar. Right?
No, I just know you.
You know it's bad.
No, I just know you. It's one of those cases where you know the answer to the question. Like, you know, it's when you're in school and the teacher asks you the question that you know the answer to, and you're like, oh, me, because you just want to, you know, show the swag that you know the answer to that question.
I see. I see. What you're saying is I've got more predictable. Okay, let's talk more about sheep again. No? Okay.
Well, I mean, I have had enough kebab for today.
Yeah, I don't think Mister's gonna have much kebab though. He's oh god, he's a small 5 sheep boy.
Yeah, looks like the numbers aren't spectacular either for Wham, which raises the question, where exactly are the sheep at? Have they all
Well,
been
he went
eaten by the berry eaters? So weird.
Yeah, he went sheep first instead of berries, and Mister went berries more early, so he will train up sooner. I like this. I think Mister's role playing appropriately. These guys are clearly like very active vegetarians. You know, not too much protein. It's why they only cost 25 food to make.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you think about that, a normal map like Lipton spawns with 24 sheep, and we are barely seeing like 9 of them out there, so there has to be a lot of consumption of sheep in Dark Age for you to fall down to just 9 sheep combined. Or we're missing some.
Yeah, go find them. What?
Oh, there is one.
Billy?
Bobby?
Wait,
Manny?
no, Jan. Sad.
This is a good puzzle for kids. It's like, you know, when you have a 2-year-old, this is something that you gotta learn because you do definitely have a kid. It's like, when you have a 2-year-old, you are not making them play this game to fight. That's bad. You make them play to find sheep.
Let's educate the 2-year-olds right now. If you have a look at Mister's Town Center expansion, bad. Sorry, I couldn't resist. If we have a look at Wham's TC expansion, good.
Very good.
Really
yeah.
good.
It's on the gold, it's also going to provide line of sight to the right side, it's on the berries, and what's more important is that Mista stopped at 2. Vam is going for 3. And as I said, it's the race to the town centers, and keep in mind that Vam had an eye on that stone mine from Mista the whole time. So he is aware of the fact that Mista is playing 2, so he's gonna say, okay, if I want to build a lead for myself, I gotta go with 3.
Oh, look where he's going to drop the other one. Wood, deer, and also a choke point. Like, this is pretty cool from Wham. He's kind of creating a natural defense point on each of his flanks as it stands. The only thing he's missing is on the eastern flank. He could set up a small palisade wall, and he'll create these funnel points that Mister can't get around.
Yeah, and his base still remains pretty condensed, so he's got an expansion with 2 town centers securing a lot of extra resources, but it's not like his base is very much spread out. In fact, it's a very condensed base, so it makes it still relatively easy and reasonable to defend.
Yeah, and he could hold for a while against the initial like assaults with just a few outposts, for example. But the cool thing as well about playing as the Abbasids is he's playing on double berry site, deer as well, so always good food gathering rates. Even when you go free TCs, it doesn't feel that greedy because of the low demand on your economy to build villagers. He can very quickly transition this in 2 minutes into a military force that can start to mass and outmass Mister.
Mista has already started doing that though. He already has a couple of horsemen out on the battlefield, but as you said, the key thing here for Vam is that right now, in the initial minutes of Mista building up his army, Mista will either not commit into the base of Vam, or even if he does, he's going to lose those units rather easily. So for Vam, he's got a little bit more time to build up his forces, and a little bit more time to capitalize on the extra town center. And when the dust settles, there is going to be identical unit compositions, but one player having an extra town center.
And keep in mind that Mister doesn't have information yet. He doesn't, like, he only went 1 scout. This is the value of what Wham's done here. Think about what he's been revealing. It's not just, oh, I harassed some villages and it was really annoying. He scouted every single move Mister made. That move to the south side of the berries got scouted. Even when the walls were going up, it got scouted. Any move on the north side got scouted. And now look at the shroud. Look at where Mister has not been this whole time.
He has
this is
no
the
idea.
first time he's scouted here.
Yeah, he has no idea about any of the expansion town centers. Bit of a slow reaction over here from Van. Very slow reaction. But this is where it gets interesting. Mista passed the second TC, but he didn't see the stone. He doesn't know the overall amount of town centers that Wham has. Which means that Mista might be like, okay, we're talking 2 TC versus 2 TC, and I will pressure this angle. He might not even find the 3rd town center for the next few minutes, and we have seen what could happen if that's the case in the high view game.
Well, when he wraps to the east side, Lidakor, he'll spot a TC and run away, and he won't know if he went 4 TC. I'm going to stop. He won't go 4 TCs. That would be insane. But yeah, the 3 TCs, even when he reveals it, like the time it's taking him is delaying his assault. He is up to 12 horsemen, but now look what Wham stockpiled behind this. 4 horsemen already in the field, 1 camel archer, and these static defenses that Mister could not dive into to fight with.
And the thing is that if Mista mixes in his own Camel Archer, he's gonna have the army advantage, but as long as it's only pure Horsemen, the lower amount of Horsemen that Wham has, supported by that Camel Archer debuffing the enemy cavalry, is going to be sufficient for Wham to hold this. He might lose 1 or 2 villagers, but he's got a TC lead to make up for it.
Wham's always paying attention on this side, and every time you do this, like the arrow fire coming out, you can see it starting to stack up and hit hard into these flimsy little horsemen. TheMista is at least going into the ranged armor now to try and offset some of that, but he's got bigger problems. Like you highlighted, the horseman gap is closing fast, 15 to the 9.
Wham, for now, he does not have an eco lead, but that status quo isn't really going to stay like this for a long time. And once again, Wham can just fall back, play a little bit more defensive, and keep in mind, Mista is yet to find the 3rd town center here, and that will come for him as a surprise. And while we do see that the overall villager counts are essentially identical, Mista does not.
He's about to get the info though, because he's suspicious right now. He doesn't understand this count. Why is Wham so far behind? And there's the info
This
reveal.
is why. This is why. And now,
look how many stables he's stacking behind this though. Like Mista, if he can't take a good fight in the next 2 minutes, I think he's gonna get swarmed.
and there could be a level of panic over here for Mista, because the thing is that he just now found a 3rd TC, but he does not know whether Wham is ahead by 10 villagers or just 2. Based on the town center counts, Wham could be ahead by, like, let's say 10, maybe even 15 villagers. 50 might be an exaggeration, but 10 is the reality. So Mista feels like there is a sense of urgency for him to dive in, and that's why he's committing so deep.
Nice shuffle there, Wham. If he pulled back towards the primary TC, he might lose 2 or 3 villages because they'll dive in. But he's microing this perfectly right now. And this is just you sitting back. You don't have to do anything. Like, Mista's going to drain himself dry at this rate because it's a race he cannot win. He needs some sort of transition, either a tech up or siege. He can't just go in with horsemen.
Yeah, numbers are equaling out, blacksmith upgrades now coming in as well for Wham, so Wham is getting ready to take a fight, and it's the same thing. You can't fight under these static defenses if you're Mista.
And this is a bad fight that Mista can't take. Like, it looks like he should have the numbers, but do you notice a certain thing missing, Mr. Camel Enthusiast? I don't see any red camels here.
Me neither, and that is a problem that Mista is facing. Also, now both blacksmith upgrades will be in here for Wham, whereas for Mista, he's yet to finish the melee attack. And as you said, the key thing is that Wham doesn't need to win a fight here right now. He just needs to make sure he doesn't lose one.
And now Mista's trying to fix a critical mistake here. He only has 1 camel at this point, so if that gets sniped, the aura is just gone. That's the difference. Wham is starting to stockpile camels, so they not only add damage in, but you can't just very gimmickly snipe one out and get your advantage back. And the advantage is shrinking. It's 27 to 32. Remember, all those horsemen are not here for Mista. Clash in the fields. Camel Archer count looking good for Wham, but is going to back away. Initial clash causing a few casualties, but remember that Wham, his base cannot be dived when there's this many horsemen and archers to support them.
Exactly. This is as far as you can push here for Mista, because that town center will provide enough supporting fire to repel this attack over here, supported by the numbers of Wham. And look at the army numbers, 27 horsemen against 33. That's the thing, the gap is closing, Mista's window is closing, because behind this, Wham is also slowly building up an eco lead. And at one point, Mista has to say, okay, I'm fighting right now, but when will that moment come?
Mista has a very inefficient economy as well. Like, look how much gold he's got. He's got way too much gold. He has no use for this right now. That's a problem, because you could actually have that for additional production right now, and you need it in this fight. Wham, clashing on top of the gold stack. Wrap around on the camel archers, but only 1 or 2 horsemen making it there means that the camel unease is maintained here. Pulls back for the moment as Mista is gaining the lead in the horseman department, but back towards the town center where he can reverse this against Mista.
Yeah, camels are still in there for both sides over here. No focus from either of these players towards those. And it's just an even trade of horsemen right now. It's a pretty good trade here for Mista, truth be told. But the numbers, they still look even, 22 to 22. And ultimately, an even trade is insufficient for Mista. He's getting repelled.
It's not even anymore. Look at the numbers right now, Lidakor. On the back of this, Wham just got the melee defense upgrade, something that Mista doesn't have. He's now going to be a minute behind in that regard, and that means his army is going to be wiped, and he will be routed all the way back to his base.
This is a big thing, and this is textbook micro. You initiate the engagement before the upgrade hits, because the opponent, he might not even notice that he's up against a much better upgraded army by the time the engagement is taken. And when he notices it, it's too late. How many times we have seen that? Because the only time when you start investigating why you're losing this engagement, why are you having possibly less upgrades than the opponent, is when you've already lost half of your army.
And now Mr. will be like, why is Wham out here? He must be running out of food. His eco must be getting big, but if you strike in, you might lose the entire army. Meanwhile, Wham, look at the villager lead. It's about 10 between them. There's not even that many villagers out there. He can't fight. He can't engage. And Wham is starting to gain some momentum here. 6 camel archers compared to the 3. Horseman exchange relatively even right now. Upgrade finally comes through from Mr., so he should be able to take a good trade. But behind this, who can replace quicker?
And who is going to have the ranged attack upgrade now coming in here? Because once again, Wham is going to have one step ahead when it comes to those upgrades. The bad news for him is that many of his villagers are exposed. At least the fight is happening inside Wham's base and not inside Mista's base. And it's something that Mista has to be satisfied with. The problem is that it's just too few right now. Because Wham is holding on and the eco lead is building more and more.
And the problem is that Mr. has to hang on here, because if he falls back a bit, he's also exposed. If you look north of where Wham just expanded, you'll also find Mr.'s economy is up there as well. They're both playing dangerous games here in the berry patches in midfield.
I actually wonder if the tower spotted this, because I think they might have had... And these villagers, they will show the others. Oh, this is gonna be a disaster.
Well,
the villagers on this tower will show the others.
Villagers, they aren't even garrisoned in time. Only 2 make it in. The torch damage is going to come through. Meanwhile, Mr. looking to dive the base, but Wham quickly building up a small defense force. And remember, you're still not looking to dive TCs with low armored units.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You have the TCs to fall back to here for Wham, whereas on the other side, Mista's working with proxy ecos or pocket ecos. So Wham can do a lot more damage over here if he decides to commit against those berry villagers, and he actually detaches a couple of horsemen to do so, while also pursuing away the army of Mista from his base.
Wham isn't teching up, and Mr. is though. This is the big problem. Wham has way too much gold. Look at that number. 2k surplus and nothing to do with it right now.
And it's not even like you can accelerate your castle age timing. That's the bigger concern. You can't rush this up. Mista is going to have a massive head start into castle age, and that can result in veteran horsemen, range defense upgrades, and even more camel archers. Wham isn't noticing. Too many attack notifications at the same time, and this could be a disaster for Wham.
And this fight is bad for him right now. Like, he's not trading that well.
It's terrible.
Look at the difference is built between the horsemen.
Everything is falling apart. He's losing his army. He's not going castle, and he's losing his eco lead. Villager count dead even. Army gone for Wham. Villagers as well.
He's converting to spears now as well. Wham is actually transitioning militarily instead of moving up. His food is still going to be drained, and he never noticed. The deer stack was a bait. Wham has just lost the economical lead.
All the eco lead gone, and keep in mind there is gonna be a castle age player. He's about to switch to spearman in a moment, where Mista can start adding men-at-arms himself. Now Wham is the one that has to make something happen, because suddenly Mista takes the lead in this one. A much needed game for him, still match point for Wham.
It's happening again. It's happening again. Wham! He's noticing too late. He's still going to lose a few villages here. He's still going to be idling eco in a situation where he needs to get the food together as quickly as actually humanly possible. Maybe we'll make a counter raid happen, but no!
He won't notice the villagers! Sneaky peeky villagers surviving there for Wham! Whereas on the other side, towers no longer sufficient to keep these villagers alive. Well, maybe for that guy.
He has to go deep. Like, Wham's only option now is he has to go deep in the base and draw attention back there to cover his tech up. But Mista will be wise to this.
Look at the army numbers. The army numbers are actually better for Mista. He can't commit.
But that's the thing, if he doesn't, oh my god,
the keep drop.
Mista!
Oh, he might get this up!
Villagers shifts out, army away from home. He caught him out in the midfield. He saw him raiding the berries. Mista, with the big brain play, drops the keep while Wham is away from home.
Such a risk taken here by Mista. He could have lost all the villager lead that he has had. He felt like he's still behind. Mista felt he's behind so much that he needed an almost all-in style play like this, but he baits out Wham to the north, drops the keep in there, and good luck getting rid of this. Mista is going to get game number 5. He feels like there is blood in the water, because Wham, he's not gonna get the 4th point on the board just yet.
Free TCs is a bait. That's what we just learned here. Mr. handling Wham, forcing him to be sucked into the perilous storm that is a prolonged feudal and exploiting him at the pristine time. Remember, with the Abbasids, if you castle up first, you can sneak it. You can always stay ahead. They cannot rush their landmark up. That is too big of a lead to overcome. And past that point, the plan quickly unraveled for Wham. What a play out of Mr. to keep his tournament life alive and keep on hanging in there for a shot at making it through to Wololo quickly.